Sonic Adventure 2. The sequel to the first game from 1998, this game came out on the Dreamcast in 2001. It was the final game for the Sega Dreamcast and came out after Sega had discontinued the console. The release of this game marked Sega's departure from the console market and transitioned fully to third-party status. While it was also released for the GameCube in the form of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and released on the Xbox 360, PS3, and Steam, this would be the last game to use the Sonic Adventure name 17 years ago. Let's dive in and see where Sonic Adventure was left and whether it should continue. Development on Sonic Adventure 2 began soon after Sonic Adventure 1's release, and took 18 months to develop. The game was created to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Sonic, and was built more around speed than the previous game. They also expanded upon the Chow Garden, and I know many people, including myself, who spent hundreds of hours in that mode alone. The story of this game is split between two stories, Hero and Dark. It's time to dive in. Let's take a look at every level in the main story mode. The story starts out with Sonic in a military helicopter, seemingly under some sort of military arrest. He apparently kills everyone on board, and jumps out of the helicopter, riding a piece of it like a snowboard. Bam! City escape. One of the most iconic Sonic levels to this day, this stage throws you right into a radical city downhill boarding section. Smash into cars, hit jumps, and just go fast, all while one of the best songs to ever come out of Sonic plays in the background. I can't believe how fun this stage still is, even after playing it so many times as a kid. When you finally get to the end, you get a chance to get used to Sonic's controls a bit, and you'll find that he controls a bit snappier this time around, and there's some new things you can do. You can grind on rails now, and you'll find that that's a very prevalent mechanic in the game later actually, so get used to it. You can also flip off these bars if you time it right, getting you access to some higher up areas. As you make your way through the level, killing enemies and running down some more hills, you eventually come to an infamous sequence, the gun truck. In this part of the stage, you are forced to run downhill towards the camera to get away from the truck. Now then, say it with me. Making the player run towards the camera in a platforming game is a gaming sin. This one only gets a pass because it's mostly automated, and I can't say I've ever actually died on this level. But don't worry, it'll come back to bite us in the ass later. Time for the first boss fight, Bigfoot. Remember that problem the last game had of just running around waiting for the boss to give you a chance to attack? Well, it's back in this game, sadly. This boss takes pretty much no effort, and the camera even fights you a bit. Not great. After this, we're treated to our first ever look at Shadow the Hedgehog, and also the dumbest plot point of all time. You're going to quickly notice throughout all these cutscenes that people in this game mistake Shadow for Sonic. That's why Sonic was under arrest at the beginning of the game. Shadow shows off Chaos Control, and Sonic is left to deal with the military. Up next, we see Knuckles and a new character, Rouge the Bat, arguing about the Master Emerald, before Eggman literally lifts the emerald up to take it. In an effort to prevent Eggman from getting the Master Emerald, Knuckles destroys it so that he can collect the pieces. Yup, the piece collection mechanics from the first game are back. Before we get into Wild Canyon, can I just say that Knuckles stages have some of the best music in this game? They're all pretty chill rap songs that just kind of fit the slow-paced mood of the levels really well. Alright, gameplay time. Right off the bat, something blew me away. You can only track one emerald piece at a time. What the heck? In the first game, you can track all three at a time. Why would they do this? The only reason I can see for this change is to artificially extend the length of the levels, which I am never a fan of. One thing they did right is making the levels a bit more expansive and interesting, and also adding these little floating monitors that can give you hints. I just wish you could track all three at a time. It would save so much time in running around. Next we see Tails heading off to Prison Island to find Sonic. As he gets close to the island, he spots Amy, literally about to be executed by Eggman, so Tails springs into action. The first time we have control of Tails, we fight Eggman. Tails has the same gameplay mechanics as E102 Gamma from the first game. Why they chose his mechanics as a holdover from the first game, I don't know. It's pretty much just as shallow here. In this fight, you can just spam B to shoot bullets fast and hope you win. Honestly, there isn't much strategy considering the homing attack is super slow in fights now. They nerfed it really hard. Tails heads into his first stage, Prison Lane. Get ready for these early stages to be way too easy. These levels have the exact same problem the Gamma stages had in the first game. You are way too overpowered for them to be challenging most of the time. I think they tried to take advantage of it by implementing a combo system to incentivize locking on to as many enemies in one shot as possible, where you get more points for a bigger chain, but it's minimally effective at solving a core problem with the gameplay just being really easy and boring. The most interesting thing they attempt in this level is this little elevator segment, but it's way too easy and short. They could have really done something with this, giving you something to jump over or tons of enemies to shoot, but no. Honestly, the biggest compliment I can give the level is that it's longer and a bit more involved in terms of design, but that almost starts to work against it. The really long levels can drag on and just not feel fun. Amy busts Sonic out of jail, and it's time to go to the next stage. Metal Harbor is where the game tries to really start pushing its new Sonic Stage mechanics. There's lots of optional rails and sections requiring homing attack platforming, but they also give you access to the game's Lightspeed Dash back from the first game. I have to say, ditching the Lightspeed Dash charge-up time from the last game was a fantastic idea. Give the guy who came up with that a raise. Not having to charge it up makes it infinitely more usable, and you'll find that through the rest of the level there are many ring sequences for you to dash on to get used to the mechanic. They did a great job updating this one. Towards the end of the level, you get near a rocket launch station and have to get to the top before the timer runs out and the rocket launches. And this part really confuses me. He gets on the rocket and rides it up pretty high, but clearly has no intention of destroying it, and then jumps off and lands in an exhaust chute? Giant chimney? To this day, I have no idea what this thing is that you land in and board down to get to the end. From here, Sonic heads into the jungle to fight Shadow. The mechanics for fighting Shadow are pretty rough. They feel super random. The game tells you that you need to get behind him, but sometimes it feels like that doesn't work. If you attack him from the front, you just bounce off, which feels strange. But sometimes when I would do a homing attack from the front, I'd hit him, so I couldn't really tell you what you need to do to actually guarantee a hit. Sonic and Shadow finish their fight, and we hear Eggman say that the island is gonna blow up. We gotta escape in time. Green Forest is the first stage where they attempt a gimmick. You're on a timer to beat the level before it runs out. It's not exactly a tight timer, but it does its job to add some tension. In terms of the level itself, you'll notice in this stage that the Lightspeed Dash is also a little buggy, and sometimes you'll hit just 1 or 2 rings and then stop. Also, these curved surfaces you run on are pretty janky. I can't tell if they want me to hold one direction and have it auto-path me along it, or if it wants me to actually attempt to move through the level. Up next, we're off to Pumpkin Hill. This stage is backed by the ultimate banger of the same name. I don't know how they managed to make such sick tracks for Knuckles. If you aren't jamming out to this song, you have no soul. They introduced the Shovel Claw in this stage, which lets you dig to find rings, items, and sometimes emerald shards. One problem this stage has, actually many of Knuckles' stages, is that the hint monitors assume you know the specific names and locations of certain parts in the stage. And some of the stages are pretty big, including this one. For example, in this stage, one of the hints I got was to go to Ghost Train Mountain. So my assumption was to look for a place with a train track. However, there were 2 places with a train track that could have been Ghost Train Mountain, so I got confused. Overall though, theming-wise, this is a very strong level. Eggman has control of an ancient space station and decides it's a good idea to blow up the moon to demonstrate his power, so we gotta stop him in 24 hours before he does the same thing to the Earth. Mission Street is basically property destruction to level. You start in the city and head on to a big highway like Radical Highway from Sonic Adventure 1. You get the hover booster for Tails in this level, so they start to add some more spread out platforming puzzles, and Tails levels are able to get a bit more interesting. Man, Tails is strong. Look at him lift that mech. It's actually a decently long level and has some good platforming. This one's alright. Aquatic Mine is kinda rough. There are lots of little side paths for you to find so that you can get to the specific areas the emerald shards might be in. In addition, you have to deal with managing the water level with these switches to get to certain places. Here's what happened to me. Right at the beginning of the level, I figured out where the first emerald shard was right away. But I needed to lower the water level to open this box. Well, the 2 given water switches don't get the water low enough, so I gotta go find the other switch. In the time it took me to find the 3rd water switch tucked away at the top of the stage, I found both of the other emerald shards without the tracker by scouring the entire level. Definitely bothered me that they hid one of the switches when they wanted water management to be the main mechanic. Apparently Sonic Team has a thing for kart racing sections, because up next is Route 101. You've gotta catch up to the President's Limo to figure out where Eggman is. Cue a decently fun kart section with decent driving mechanics. It's very easy, but it's still pretty fun. Also, obvious joke. Deja vu, I just been in this place before. Up next is another Tails stage, Hidden Base. Honestly, even now, I am still having a hard time coming up with anything to say about this level that is interesting, if that says anything about it. Most of it is just like walking forward, blowing up mines, fighting enemies, and destroying doors. That's like the whole level. The next level, however, Pyramid Cave, is a much more interesting level. They actually use a few interesting mechanics in here. The first is these time sections using hourglasses. When you hit one, it'll open a few doors and you have a limited amount of time to get through. There's even a really nicely designed room where you have to hit a timer in one spot and double back to get a key to the open door. They found some surprisingly interesting uses for this mechanic. I'm a big fan of it. They also introduced the bounce attack in this stage, which lets Sonic repeatedly bounce in place to get some more height to get up to certain platforms. This seemed like another throwaway mechanic like some of the ones we saw in Sonic Adventure 1, but the bounce actually does get some more use in later stages, so props for that. Now for Knuckles' stage in the pyramid, Death Chamber. What a name. This time you're trying to find gate keys, though in the end it's the same gimmick. Now, the hourglass mechanic is the exact same functionality-wise here, but it's just used to open doors that are like right in front of the hourglass, so it's kind of pointless. The area itself is a bit more interesting when compared to the previous levels though. This one is split into 3 colored areas and a main area, and there's a map. So when you go to a hint terminal, you can actually figure out where you're supposed to go. The areas are separated by a little fade to black transition though, so it kinda stops the action a bit. Knuckles finds the keys and out comes a spooky ghost for a boss battle. This is King Boom Boom Boo. I can't say his fight actually boils down to any super interesting mechanics, though they did find a way to make the run around and wait for your enemy to let you attack a little more interesting because he chases you. Once you're able to get behind him and hit the hourglass, a little sunroof thing opens and the ghost goes into the ground or wall to hide, and you have to chase him and dig him out to hit him. This is definitely the most interesting part of the fight, and once you have to start chasing him onto the wall, it can get pretty hectic. After this, it's Sonic's turn for a boss battle against the Egg Golem. I enjoy the mechanics of this boss a lot, though the actual arena you fight in is a bit confusing to deal with. You're placed on a ring of broken up platforms, and below you is a pit of quicksand. If you get knocked down, you better jump and homing attack like your life depends on it before you get sucked under. If you're able to get behind the golem, you get to jump on the platform sticking out of his back to get to his head. As the fight goes on and you damage him more, the platforms retract as you climb, giving you less time to make it to the top. Probably one of the more well-designed bosses, though the quicksand might be a bit much. The team grab the space shuttle and head to Ark, and definitely one of the most hilarious and infamous cutscenes from this game ensues. Please enjoy.
What the? Is everyone alright? We should be landing soon.
The hatch doors are open.
Don't sweat it, Knuckles. The only thing in the cargo bay are those
What do you
master
mean,
emeralds.
don't sweat it?
Right?
Land the
Knock
shuttle
it
and
off,
let me
Knuckles.
out.
We're gonna crash this thing if you keep that up. Oh no! Don't touch that lever! Whoa!
Beautiful. Tails has a plan to shut down the Ark with a fake Chaos Emerald, so to the center we go. Eternal Engine decided to be an actually interesting Tails level for once, and also a really long one. One of my favorite things it does design-wise is similar to what they start to do at the end of Sonic Adventure 1 with Gamma stages. In rooms filled with enemies, there are many trap doors with explosives attached to them. Hitting these will cause a hole to open in the ship, and if you get near it, you get sucked into space. This discourages locking onto everything and spamming like you had been doing the entire game before, and don't act like you weren't because everyone was. Also, there's this weird section where I guess the gravity between the parts of the ship or something gets messed up and you tumble around in space while trying to shoot enemies and make your way across. It's weird. Looks like Knuckles needs to find those emerald shards, so we're off to Meteor Herd. This stage is really freaking big. It's honestly impressive. You can go from the ground all the way up to the actual station, and it's an awesome stage, if not a bit difficult to figure out where you need to go to find emeralds. Also, if you've never played this game, do yourself a favor and climb to the highest point in the stage and jump off and drill dive. It's like the most satisfying thing ever. After this, Knuckles has a showdown with Rouge, and honestly this fight is a huge mess. You pretty much just run around trying to punch her and hope it works. I think you're supposed to get behind her or hit her after her combo or something, but I could never figure out a strategy. I just spammed and prayed. Sometimes you get forced up onto these side platforms, and then it just gets really awkward and sometimes also hard to find where Rouge even is. Rouge gives Knuckles the rest of the emerald shards, and there's some sexual tension before they head off. Crazy Gadget shows some real awareness of all of Sonic's mechanics, and it shows that it actually knew what to do with its mechanics to put them into a comprehensive final level. The first thing you notice right away in this level is the gravity puzzles. There are a bunch of areas in the level where you flip the gravity to another direction, and it makes for some interesting, if not a little buggy, level design. In addition, they actually bring back the bounce attack, and you need it again to get to certain areas. When I saw that, I was very pleased they didn't just throw it away, as I had already completely forgotten about it. The final area of this level is a gravity puzzle room that has you going on all sides of what are essentially giant Tetris pieces. It's an intuitive but extremely creative use of the gravity mechanic. I was really intrigued when I got to this area for the first time. It makes you feel like you're finding your own way to go, even though I'm 90% sure there's only one way through. Really nice design here. Final Rush is more of a spectacle than a well-designed challenge. There's tons of rails and different paths to take, likely in an attempt to make it a bit more replayable. That being said, I have a theory that some Sonic levels give the illusion of multiple paths to give the idea of replayability, but I digress. Some of the rails can be kind of annoying to work with, especially these little vertical rails you're supposed to dash attack at. Sometimes you slide backwards down them and weird stuff will happen. I definitely died a few times from these, and it was pretty annoying. Finally, Sonic and Shadow come face to face for their showdown. I cannot figure out the gimmick to this fight. I never know when I am allowed to hit him. This is a consistent theme throughout the character fights. To show my frustration, here is the end of a 3-minute attempt where I died at the very end. And here is me absolutely destroying Shadow in like 50 seconds. It's so inconsistent. The Ark blows up and Sonic wins. But we're not done yet, it's time for Dark Story. Dark Story starts out with Eggman breaking into a top secret facility to get the secret weapon that his grandfather was creating. So to briefly touch on this, in Dark Story you play as Eggman, Rouge, and Shadow. Eggman parallels Tails' gameplay, Rouge parallels Knuckles, and Shadow parallels Sonic's. So the first level is Eggman's, of course, and Iron Gate is a very straightforward level, as it's Eggman trying to get to the center of a military base, though I will say the gimmick of getting through security is pretty cool. The facility starts to lock down more and more as you get through the security doors, and there's more and more doors to get through. I like at the end when you get to fire a rocket through a bunch of secure doors. Eggman gets to the center and finds Shadow, the ultimate life form, TM. Shadow says for freeing him, he'll grant Eggman a wish, when suddenly a mech pops up, so Shadow gets to demonstrate his power. And it's the same first fight as with Sonic. This is a bit of a gripe I have with this game. As you'll find out by the end, you're definitely meant to play Hero before Dark. So the fact that they set you back and act like you've never played the game before is kind of annoying. They could have easily railroaded you into Hero and then cut out a bunch of the inconveniences you face by doing it this way, but we'll take them as they come. Shadow bodies the mech and the two head off to find the emeralds. After seeing the Master Emerald scene again, we're greeted with Rouge's first stage. Again, her stages function exactly the same as Knuckles, but she does at least get some slight locale variations, so that's good at least. Though, on her first level, Dry Lagoon, I was confused about how to get the turtle for like way too long. But I think I'm just an idiot. Eggman is headed into the pyramid, and we get another taste of inconvenience for the game, assuming you haven't played Hero Story. This is a very slow platforming level due to Eggman not having the booster yet. I kept making unsafe jumps and forgetting I didn't have the booster because I was impatient. I actually game overed once because of it. They really should have just gave you the booster. Up next is Radical Highway, and I have to say, for the theming being good, this level is pretty much automatic. Tons of loops and straight downhill sections. There's some enemy fighting and platforming along the way, but honestly, like, just not a lot happens. In Egg Quarters, you're searching for keys again, but as Rouge this time. They added some patrolling robots that you have to avoid, so it's at least got some challenge, but they move on a set path and aren't exactly hard to avoid. Lost Colony has Eggman up on the Ark, as instructed by Shadow to figure out what it is. Remember how that Tails elevator I mentioned could be more interesting if they added more enemies to fight and manage? Well, they had the perfect chance to do it here, but instead they lock you in place. Here is footage of me playing this section with perfect skill. The level theming may be good, but they totally blew their chance here. Having a hectic auto-scrolling elevator where you move around and dodge stuff would have been so good. Eggman has a plan of collecting the emeralds and destroying Prison Island with the help of Rouge, so Eggman is off to deal with the military in the meantime. This level is super boring. You just destroy like a lot of stationary robots. It kind of makes the combo system feel stupid when you get a combo for destroying like 40 unactivated robots. Spam some rockets at Tails and head off to the next Rouge stage. Security Hall is a level that gave me a ton of trouble when I was a kid. Since the island is going to explode, you're on a 5-minute timer to find the emeralds. If you were able to track all 3 emeralds at one time, I think this would be a good time limit, but since my theory of why they only allow you to track 1 is to artificially lengthen the stage, it doesn't work well when the stage has a time limit. I do like that they put some pressure on the player, since normally the stakes in these stages are very low, but it's a kind of tight window if you're really struggling to get the tracker to start. The hints on the monitors are a bit cryptic too. As an adult, this level was a lot easier, but it's still a bit inconsistent overall. You fight another mech as Rouge this time, and then it's off to Shadow's next stage. In contrast to Rouge's stage, this level's timer is way too easy. I finished it with more than half the time remaining. I think this timer should have actually been a bit tighter. I do like many of the features of the level though. It's a fun romp through the jungle. You beat up Sonic, and everyone escapes the exploding island. Rouge has a kart race section like Tails, and then we're on to Skyrail. Out of all the levels that have rails as the main gimmick, Skyrail probably does the best at balancing rail sections and land sections and making both equally good. The rail hitboxes can still be a bit finicky if you're trying to land on them though. A few times I definitely thought I was going to land on a rail and just completely missed it. This time, when Eggman sends the egg golem on Sonic, Sonic quickly removes the control device and it turns on Eggman. However, it's a stupidly easy fight. You spam shots at its chest to open up a few spots that you can hit with a tracking shot to kill him. It's really easy. Alright, time for another gross level. This is Rouge's space level parallel to Knuckles. And oh god, it's just really terrible. You ever play Super Mario Galaxy and wonder how much effort was put into making the camera and gravity and physics work well? Well, this is basically the half-baked version of that. Some of the planetoids you get up to have their own gravity, but in reality it's just some game trickery, as you can't actually get to the lower half of any of the planets. However, most of my footage was literally just me trying to figure out how to escape the gravity of one of the planetoids. It took me like 4 minutes to figure it out. It's just really goofy and buggy, and the level is massive like Knuckles' stage, so it can be really hard to figure out where to go. Knuckles and Rouge fight again, and we're on to Cosmic Wall. This stage is actually able to do some interesting things because they went with low gravity for this one. You're actually able to use the hover booster to hover up, albeit only in certain places, but they're able to make the level a lot more platformy. There are a lot more enemies along the way too, which I like, since it gives you more to deal with. That being said, they did 2 more of these locked-in-place shooting sections. Please don't do this. Eggman fights Tails and we're on to Final Chase. This level is absolutely strange. The level is covered in these weird gravity columns that you stick to when you jump on them, and it's a pretty long stage. You spend most of the time platforming around on these columns presented in various ways, moving up them, moving down them, horizontally. They really got a lot of use out of these actually, and navigating them became strangely natural by the end. I really thought it would have just been super jank. At this point, Shadow fights Sonic just like at the end of Hero Story, only this time, after the end, the credits roll very abruptly, as it seems that the story has been cut off just as Eggman puts the last emerald into the Ark and a warning screen flashes up. After the credits, there's this little video that runs that is essentially a trailer for the last chapter of the game, Last Story. I wanted to show you it in its entirety, as it's a pretty cool trailer.
The ultimate life form.
Chaos
Vengeance.
control.
Space
Desperation.
Supersonic.
Collision.
Untamed power. of
Maria
chaos.
Professor Gerald, the
Apocalypse.
truth about 50
The end
years
of
ago.
everything.
Sonic Adventure 2. Last episode. Wishes are eternal.
If any of you know about Porter Robinson's Project Virtual Self, this is exactly what it reminds me of. So the last story starts out with an extremely long cutscene introducing the real baddie. Turns out Shadow wasn't the ultimate life form, but it was instead something that Gerald Robotnik was developing at the center of the Ark, and now the Ark is plummeting toward the Earth as Gerald wants revenge, and the ultimate life form has been activated. Now it's time for everyone to team up to stop the Ark from hitting the Earth, and we're put into the final long stage, Cannon's Core. Cannon's Core is one long level where you play as multiple characters at different points in the level, and honestly it's hard to think of a more fitting style of a final level for a game where you play as multiple characters. It's pretty sick. Tails and Eggman's stages involve simply getting to the end of the stage to open a security door. Knuckles and Rouge's do too, except theirs is more styled around their kind of gameplay. Rouge is placed in a room where she has to climb to the top of a pillar and use a switch to freeze the room in place. Once she gets to the side room, she makes her way through in order to fill the room with water so that Knuckles can get up to the final security door. Once you're playing as Knuckles, however, you actually have to go back through the same area Rouge played in, except it's underwater. It's a super cool effect, though the swimming can be a bit slow, and the whole level is honestly really stressful. You have to make your way through a pretty long part of the level, all while managing your air underwater. It can be tricky, but I absolutely love the concept. Then finally, after Knuckles opens the security door, it's Sonic's time to shine. That being said, Sonic's section is sort of half-baked and badly designed. There's a lot of stuff it doesn't communicate with you. There's two parts of the level where I just died because I had no idea what the game wanted from me. There's some enemies suspended over a pit you have to kill to open a door, but for the entire rest of the game, homing attack enemies in a row is used as a path. I just straight up fell into the pit because I assumed it led me somewhere. The second confusing part is this water path thing. It puts you on this water path, and in every other instance where this happens, including Sonic Adventure 1, it's a path that just takes you the right way. But instead, it just takes you to your death if you don't jump over the top and go to the other side. It's just like it breaks all its rules right at the end of the game, and it led to 2 frustrating deaths. Now it's time for the run-up to the finale. They get to the core of the Ark and find a replica of the Master Emerald Altar from Sonic Adventure 1 that Gerald was using to summon the Ultimate Being. Honestly, right here I thought that we're gonna bring Chaos back for a fight, but instead we're put up against the BIOLIZARD. The BIOLIZARD commits some pretty awful design sins. Remember the gun truck at the beginning where it didn't matter that you were running toward the camera because there was nothing in your way that could kill you? Well, in this boss you're forced to jump over gaps in the arena because the river will suck you right out of the arena and kill you if you're on the edge of it when you're in the water. The boss itself has some pretty boring attacks minus the shadow balls, which are absolutely a pain to deal with. It gets to the point later in the fight where some of the shadow balls are so fast it feels like you can't actually dodge them. The only thing keeping this from being awful is that they give you ring recovery time if you actually get hit, but it's not fun to fight against. At some point, the BIOLIZARD starts putting up these pink balls to jump on to get to the top instead of grinding along the rails on his body to hit him. Honestly though, the homing attack really fights you here. It never homes in on the thing you think it will. You'll end up doing like 3 or 4 extra homing attacks just to get to him. The fight culminates in his final attack where he levitates you and starts throwing pink balls at you. It can be really annoying to dodge these, and at the end of a 3.5 minute fight, the last thing you want is to die, so you try to play it safe, but honestly that just gets you killed. You kinda just gotta YOLO toward the center and hope you hit him. This fight was just not fun. After this, Sonic and Shadow get to the altar and find out that the BIOLIZARD has now fused with the Ark in an effort to prevent it from being stopped, so Sonic and Shadow have to get out there. They use the emeralds to transform into Super Sonic and Super Shadow, and it's time for the final showdown. The Final Hazard is the final boss, and similar to Ultimate Chaos, it has its own special mechanics for its fight. You fly around in space and attempt to get close to Final Hazard to hit him with homing attacks, and when you hit him, you switch to whichever of Sonic and Shadow that you weren't controlling, all while Live and Learn plays in the background. The atmosphere, no pun intended, of the fight is totally awesome, but sadly the last few parts of the fight can be frustrating, as most of the attacks Final Hazard uses push you super far away when you get hit, and you're on a timer to get each hit, otherwise you instantly lose. Nothing kills the momentum of the final boss quite like dying on the last hit a few times. Sonic and Shadow team up to stop the Ark from falling and use a joint chaos control to move the entire ship back up into space. Shadow doesn't survive, however, and plummets to Earth dying, hoping he has fulfilled his promise to Maria. Everyone reminisces about Shadow's demise, and how even though he acted evil sometimes, he helped save humanity in the end. It's a really emotional and well done ending, I think, considering how silly the plot of this whole game is. It is Sonic Adventure after all. And similar to Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2 is a bit of a mess at times, sometimes not knowing what it wants to do or whether it knows how to use its mechanics or not. But I have to say, it's still a lot of fun to play overall. Compared to Sonic Adventure 1, this game has aged far better. I don't think it's too hard to come back and play this game right now. Sonic Adventure 1 is a bit more of a slog to get through at times. I know I'm biased because I loved this game growing up, but this was my first time ever actually beating it, and I know I had a good time regardless of its flaws. After Sonic Adventure 1 and 2's success and re-releases, many thought Sonic Adventure 3 was a for sure thing. However, Takashi Iizuka says there won't be any Sonic Adventure 3 anytime soon. He seems to want a potential Sonic Adventure 3 to be an advancement of the series and not a step backwards just for the sake of fan service. He said that if we can get the gameplay to evolve to a point where Sonic Adventure 3 makes sense, then you might see Adventure 3 come out. We don't know if that'll ever happen, so for now, Sonic Adventure can take its place in the franchise graveyard. Thanks for watching, guys. I know in the last video I made some statements about videos that I was going to make, and then I afterwards probably changed my mind, so I'm going to do my best to not make any promises about videos, just going to make them and put them out. That being said, I am going to try to get one more video out before the end of the year, but whether or not that's a franchise graveyard, I'm not sure. Check out my Twitter and my Twitch, links are in the description below, and I may start uploading gameplay from my Twitch channel to a second channel, so be on the watch for that. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.